Camilla Creek House, East Falkland, the night of 27th of May, 1982. A Sea King comes in low over the peat. Underneath it, slung on cable, a 105mm light gun, then another, then a third. 3 guns, that is all 8 battery can get forward in the dark. A full battery fields 6. Tonight, half that will do the work. 2 Para is about to attack Darwin and Goose Green, dug in and held by a force that outnumbers them. Some 700 paratroopers against a garrison of over 1,000. Offshore, HMS Arrow has spent the night bombarding the Argentine line, a forward observer walking her rounds onto target, her crew nursing a turret fault back into action in the dark. But dawn is coming, and dawn means air attack, and air attack means the frigate has to run. At first light on the 28th, HMS Arrow turns for San Carlos. From that moment until the guns fall silent that night, 3 105mm pieces are the only artillery the 2 Para battle group has between it and the alternative. Lieutenant Colonel Herbert Jones is about to walk forward into the fire at Darwin Hill to find out whether that will be enough. The gun crews at Camilla Creek House do not know any of this yet. They know only that they were flown in under cover of darkness with their ammunition and little else, and that the battalion attacking at first light is relying on them because there is nothing else left to rely on. 6 men to a gun, 3 guns, a battery commander's map, and 960 rounds of high explosive, standing between roughly 700 paratroopers and the rest of the war. To understand why 3 guns were even there, you have to go back 17 years, to a gun the army was trying to get rid of. From 1961, British light artillery meant the 105mm pack howitzer, the L5, an Italian design built for the Alpini, light enough to be broken down and carried by mule if the terrain demanded it. On paper, it suited British airborne and commando forces perfectly. In practice, gunners found it short on range, short on punch, awkward to sight accurately, and slow into action when speed was the entire point of having a light gun in the first place. By 1965, the Ministry of Defence had a firm requirement in front of it. A new 105mm field gun, capable of full 360-degree traverse, weighing no more than 1,588 kilograms, 3,500 pounds, so it could go under a helicopter rather than behind a mule. It had to be built around a new, more capable British 105mm field round, rather than the ammunition the pack howitzer had used. It had to be in action in seconds, not minutes. It was, in effect, an order to design out every fault the pack howitzer had shown in a decade of use, without giving up the one virtue that had justified buying it in the first place, that it could get to places a heavier gun could not. The work went to the Royal Armament Research and Development Establishment at Fort Halstead. Radi's design lineage ran straight back to the design department at Woolwich Arsenal, the people who had built the 25-pounder, and it showed. The new gun took the 25-pounder's vertically sliding breech block and its box trail rather than a split one. What it did not take was the 25-pounder's weight. The barrel, designated L118, was auto-frettaged, the metal pre-stressed under internal pressure before final machining, so it could be built lighter without being built weaker. A narrow wheelbase kept the whole platform compact enough for underslung flight, at the cost of one awkward compromise. The barrel could not rotate the full arc needed to fold the gun for towing, without a wheel being pulled clear first. A trained crew learned to do this in 30 seconds. It became routine rather than a flaw. Trials ran through the late 1960s, testing accuracy, recoil management, and structural endurance under repeated firing. In 1973, the design was accepted for service as the Gun 105mm Field L118. Production began at the Royal Ordnance Factory in Nottingham, with first guns handed over in October 1974. Deliveries to units followed from 1976, replacing the pack howitzer across the Royal Artillery's regular regiments, and in time, the Territorial Army alongside it. Combat weight, 1,858 kilograms. Crew, 6, they 4 could serve the gun at a push. Maximum range with a standard L31 high explosive shell, 17.2 kilometers. Half again the reach of the gun it replaced. Rate of fire, 6 to 8 rounds a minute in trained hands. The L31 shell itself, its makers claimed, carried a lethal area some 25% greater than the equivalent American 105mm round then in NATO service. It was heavier than the gun it replaced. Nobody pretended otherwise. But the aircraft meant to lift it, the Puma, the Sea King, were entering service at the same time, and a few hundred extra kilograms mattered less than the range and reliability brought with them. In 1982, in the peat of East Falkland, that trade was about to be tested for the first time in a war, against an enemy that had made a very different bet with almost the same gun. The Argentine army defending Goose Green was not equipped with some inferior improvisation. It was equipped, in large part, with the same gun Britain itself had been racing to replace for a decade. Argentina's 105mm pack howitzers were OTO Melara Mod 56s, the Italian-designed piece that Britain, too, had adopted and fielded for 2 decades as the L5. From an Argentine gunnery officer's position, this was not a poor choice. It was the rational one. The pack howitzer was proven, air-portable, familiar, and it had done exactly what light artillery was meant to do for decades of Commonwealth and Allied service alike. There was no reason to doubt it would do the same job here, defending prepared positions on ground the defenders had chosen. What the Argentine gunners could not answer for was 17 years of range and reliability the British had spent since 1965 buying back. And they could not have known it because the 2 guns looked, on paper, like cousins rather than a generation apart. Same caliber, same broad concept, same logic of light, air-portable fire support for exactly this kind of terrain. At Goose Green on 28th May, with naval gunfire withdrawn for the day, 3 L118s of 8 battery fired in direct support of 2 Para's advance on Darwin and Boga House. Where the fighting stalled, B Company pinned by fire from entrenched positions at Boga House, A Company halted below the rise soon named Darwin Hill. It was the light guns' range advantage over the Argentine pack howitzers that let British gunners reach targets the defenders' own artillery could not answer in kind. The battle was won, in the end, by infantry closing the distance under fire. But it was fought under a sky where one side's artillery outranged the others, and both sides knew it. That range gap held for the rest of the campaign. Guns of 29 Commando Regiment moved forward between Fitzroy and Bluff Cove under camouflage netting, displacing repeatedly as the advance on Stanley continued. In the final phase of the war, in the battles for the high ground surrounding Stanley itself, the full complement of 30 light guns, 5 batteries flown and towed forward across terrain that swallowed heavier equipment, fired up to 400 rounds per gun a day, most of them on charge super, the heaviest and longest-reaching propellant charge the gun was built to take. Across the war, those 30 guns fired roughly 17,000 rounds. Not one gun broke down under the load. Argentine gunners defending Stanley were being reached by artillery that outranged the gun family they and Britain had both once trusted for exactly this role. That is not a story about courage or its absence. British losses at Goose Green ran to 18 killed. Argentine dead numbered around 50, with 961 Argentine personnel taken prisoner by the battle's end. It is a story about what happens when one side's rational procurement decision meets the other side's decade of quiet, unglamorous range improvement. The kind of advantage that never appears in a briefing on enemy morale, only in whose shells land first. Here is the part that does not fit the story of a gun that won a war. For most of the last 2 decades, the L118 has not been fighting Argentina or the Taliban or anyone else. It has been fighting the Ministry of Defense's own procurement system instead, and winning. The light gun's official out-of-service date has been set, publicly, for 2030. That date has been on the books for years. It has not moved because the gun has been declared timeless. It has not moved because, one after another, the programs meant to replace it have failed to survive contact with reality.
Not every cancelled programme was aimed at the light gun specifically. The Royal Artillery's entire modernisation effort has struggled in the same period. Lee Moore's gun, a wheeled 155mm system meant to give the Army's strike brigades a modern towed capability, went nowhere. The Indirect Fire Precision Attack Capability Programme, the Umbrella project meant to modernise Royal Artillery equipment across the board, produced, in the words of one long-time observer of the programme, little more than nothing. A guided 155mm anti-tank round called SMART was cancelled soon after the contract to buy it was signed. Braveheart, an upgrade path for the AS-90 self-propelled gun, was cancelled outright. Fire Shadow, a loitering munition developed for a different part of the Fire's picture entirely, was left in limbo for years and eventually cancelled too. None of these programs was ever going to replace the L118 directly, but each one was meant to modernise the wider system the light gun sits inside, and each failure left the case for retiring the 105mm piece a little weaker by default. Even the light gun's own tow vehicle has not been spared. The Pinzgauer, in service since the late 1990s, has itself faced repeated replacement discussions under a separate programme, its own out-of-service date pushed back in step with the gun it hauls. Both kept in service past their planned retirement by the absence of anything ready to take their place. The most serious attempt came more recently, and it went further than any of the others. The Defence Science and Technology Laboratory, working with Kinetic, developed the Lightweight Fires platform, a genuine successor concept, not a paper study. It reached the stage of a working technology demonstrator platform, a 127mm gun fed by a 14-round magazine, mounted on an electrically operated carriage, built to be fired by remote control rather than a standing crew. It was built. It was tested. And then, according to reporting from within the defence sector in 2025, the plan to replace the L118 with it was quietly dropped. No press conference announced the decision, no minister stood up to explain it. The programme that had gone furthest toward finally retiring a gun accepted for service in 1973 simply stopped being mentioned as its replacement. The dark reason the L118 is still in service is not that nobody tried to replace it. Several people tried, seriously, expensively, over 4 decades. The reason is that every replacement, on paper, solved a problem the light gun's actual users were not the ones asking to have solved. More range, more automation, more magazine capacity, while the thing that had kept the L118 relevant since Goose Green was never the specification sheet. It was that 6 men and a towed gun could go where a 14-round automated carriage, however capable, could not always follow. The clearest proof of that came from a war nobody was planning for when the 2030 retirement date was first floated. In 2022, the United Kingdom began supplying Ukraine with L119 variants of the light gun, refurbished from stock originally sold to Australia, passed through BAE systems and shipped east. They were not sent as a stopgap curiosity. They were sent because a towed 105mm gun that a crew can manhandle, camouflage, fire, and move again in minutes has a quality that heavier, more networked artillery does not always share on a battlefield saturated with loitering munitions and counter-battery radar. It is hard to find, and once found, it is already gone. Reporting from the front has been mixed, but not in the direction planners expected. Some coverage has stressed how vulnerable any towed gun is once counter-battery radar and loitering munitions find it. Other reporting has stressed the opposite, that low weight and a small footprint let a light gun crew displace faster than heavier, more networked systems can manage, trading sophistication for the ability to simply not be there when the return fire lands. Either way, nobody planning the L118's retirement in the 2000s expected a war in which a towed 105mm gun's concealability would become a live argument for keeping the type in service, rather than a reason to scrap it.
The same mobility that let 8 batteries sling 3 guns under a Sea King into Camilla Creek House in 1982 is now being cited, in some quarters, as an asset again. By late 2023, BAE Systems was discussing a local presence inside Ukraine itself to support and eventually help produce the very 105mm system British planners had tried for most of the preceding decade to retire. Back home, the Ministry of Defence has kept investing in the gun it cannot bring itself to finally replace. New insensitive munition high explosive rounds have been developed to succeed the L31 shell, matched to the same ballistics, so gunners need relearn nothing. As recently as late 2023, the ministry was still soliciting new illumination shells for the L118 to support frontline brigades and the commando group. Hardly the procurement behaviour of an institution that expects to retire the weapon on schedule. As of recent counts, some 126 light guns remain in British Army service, in the hands of 4th Regiment Royal Artillery, 7th Parachute Regiment Royal Horse Artillery, 29 Commando Regiment, and 3 regiments of the Army Reserve, more than 50 years after the requirement that produced it was first written down. One former user, 3rd Regiment Royal Horse Artillery, gave up its light guns only in 2023, re-rolled onto the M270 rocket system as part of a wider restructuring, not because the gun had failed, but because the regiment's mission changed. It is fired in Kuwait, Bosnia, Sierra Leone, Iraq, and Helmand Province, where crews kept guns running around the clock in support of forward operating bases from 2006 onward, firing high explosive by day and illumination by night to hold ground the Taliban wanted back. In November 2001, when Edinburgh Castle needed a replacement for its aging 25-pounder 1 o'clock gun, a piece fired every day except Sunday, Good Friday, and Christmas, it was the light gun that took over the job. And it has fired that ceremonial round every working day since, watched by tourists who have no idea the gun on the ramparts once fired 17,000 rounds in anger, 19 years before it started firing blanks for a living. A weapon system does not usually get handed both a live war and a ceremonial tradition in the same career. The L118 has been trusted with both, by the same institution it has failed for 4 decades to build anything it trusts more. Every one of the programs meant to end the light gun's career was designed by people asking a reasonable question. What would a better gun look like on paper? Longer range, bigger magazine, less reliant on human hands. Each answer was correct as far as the paper went. None of them answered the question the men at Camilla Creek House were actually living through on the night of 27th May 1982, or the question Ukrainian gun crews are living through now. Not what does the ideal system look like, but what can 6 people move, hide, fire, and move again before the enemy finds them. That gap between the problem an institution designs for and the problem its soldiers actually face is where the light gun has lived for 50 years. It survived because the Ministry of Defence kept solving the wrong problem, elegantly, expensively, and on schedule, while the gun itself kept solving the right one, badly funded and mostly ignored. Consider what the L118 has been asked to outlast. The rifle its first crews carried has been retired. The vehicle that first towed it has been retired. Several of the officers who accepted it for service in 1973 have been dead for years. The gun itself has watched at least half a dozen named programs, worth in total far more than the light gun fleet was ever worth, rise, get funded, get demonstrated, and vanish from the procurement pipeline without a single unit reaching a regiment. The L118 is not still in service because it was never replaced. It is still in service because nothing built to replace it has ever been asked to do the one thing it was actually needed for. Subscribe for the next story the institutions would rather you didn't hear.